Hello, my friends. Welcome back. Mark here with the Secrets Behind the Red Doors. As you can see next to me, my friend Kevin's back in town. So we're going to have a little talk. It's been a while, been about 4 or 5 days, Memorial Day weekend. I hope you all honored the people who gave their lives for us. Very important. They sacrificed themselves so we could do stupid stuff or good stuff, in life. I want to talk to you. It says everything's going great. I'm still working on a show. We're putting it together, production. All my subscribers, if you want to get involved on it, we will alert you, and I'll ask you for your email, the email, whatever, to get you to contact with you, so you can get directly into it. We'll figure it out. We're doing it now with our tech people. It's going to take some time, but I promise you, it's going to be something you've never seen before. Um, I want to talk about more of the Bergen and the old stories because they're important. I don't want you. I don't want to talk about the people directly on YouTube and their bullshit stories. I'm going to talk about one bullshit story, but I'm going to tell it later on in this episode. I'm not going to mention any names, but I want you to know the truth. We're all about the truth here. These are guys we respected back then, and we're gonna have some fun too. You're gonna get fun stories and you're gonna fun and little intense stories too. We're not gonna skip the beat. So you remember last week I was talking to you about characters that came in the club. So John, I talked to you about Frankie Chico came by the club on Wednesday nights. You see John, sometimes he came on Saturday. And it was always this guy coming up behind him, Patty Boxcars. I told you about the voice, the cigarette hanging out of his mouth, the stains on his shirt. Real character. And he always had a sheet. Want a number, he would hawk you to play a number with him. So I told you Kevin has a story about him I want you to hear because it's typical Patty Boxcars, but it gives you a little insight about that time. So Kevin, tell him the story about Patty Boxcars.
Patty was a great guy, old timer. Used to come around, came up to my club on Utica Avenue, and I says, "Wow, this is a nice fellow." But like Mark was saying, he had the velour zip-up jacket, coffee stains on it, and I was shocked. Then one day he says to me, "Kev, I need a car." So I says, "Okay." We got the Big Apple car service in Rent-A-Car in Canarsie. So what a mistake I made. Turns out, get Patty the car. He told me he's only going to use it for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. He had this car 6 months. 6 months.
That's Patty.
And I said to him, "Patty, you got to give me that car back." I said, "Michelle and them, and they turn around, they need the car back." So I saw the car. I said, "Oh my God, how am I going to explain it to them?" Fenders are smashed, no license plates on the car. I said, "Patty, what are you doing?"
How dirty
He
was
says, "Well, oh yeah, then inside the car, that was another thing." But I said, "Patty, how am I going to explain this?" He says, "Well, I was just learning how to drive."
How old was he? The 60s?
Oh, no, he was older than that. He was about 70 years
Just
old.
learn how to drive.
Like another thing, like Mark was saying, he always had a sheet with him, whether it was gambling sheets, but he had also a fireworks.
Oh, God.
He used to go there for fireworks and turn around. He had that garage loaded up. And another person may rest in peace with Frankie DeChico. Frankie DeChico used to tell him, "Hey, Patty, you still live in that house? It's my bathroom is bigger than your house." And Patty said, "Well, this is all I could afford." But he was such a great guy.
Yeah,
he funny guy.
Yeah, he was harmless in that sense, right, Kevin?
Oh.
I mean, you see him, he always was gentleman, come on, "Hey, how you doing? Hi, Kevin, hey, hello," right?
I remember the time we were taking action, and Patty was there, and you guys went in. There's a few of you, and he said, "What can I do for them?" I said, "Why? I thought you had no money." He says, "I'll get them out."
Yeah, he'll get them
I'll
out.
get them out. But he was concerned for them. That's the type of guy he was.
Yeah,
he had a good heart. Who he was, it didn't matter.
we took me, Joey, we took a little stupid pinch, in a gambling club, and he wanted to help us. That was which is nice, But so guys like that, we have to talk about them because there's part of that life on the street back then people don't talk about. You want to hear the same 4 or 5 dummies or liars repeat the same stuff over and over again. You're going to hear stories, and I promise you, I'm trying to spread it out because I got a lot of stories, but I want to do this big show. Kevin, we're excited about that show.
Oh,
It's going to be
yes.
great. We're gonna have a great guy, Tony Chickens. Tony,
I was just with him I was just up in New York. I had to see some doctors up there. I went and saw Tony because his wife is not doing good. She got dementia, and it was my way to go see her, to say hello to Julie and turn around as soon as she saw. I said, Tony, I thought she has dementia. He says, Kevin,
it's
oh
just a
my
mention
God.
for him, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. And right away, she's 95 years old. And she turned around and she says, oh, I want to go out. I want to find a man. The nurse comes in and says, how old are you? She said, 21. Ah, you're too old. I said, Tony, look at this. But Tony was even telling me stories how his family came from Sicily here, and Carlo Gambino and everybody came in with his family. So he has a lot of great stories to say. He's looking to come on this show.
And all nice things.
All nice things.
That's what the story, we do it all the time. People tell me you don't have to keep explaining yourself, but I have to because I want, we're not here to disrespect anybody, but I think no matter what that life was, there was also good sides too. And you got to hear about them. I want you to hear both sides of it. You're going to see it. And soon we're going to be inside our own club. We're going to shoot this from inside a club. You guys are going to love it. And we're going to have more guys than us come in, guest stars. We're going to do what we're supposed to do is tell the truth. The Bergen Hunt Fish Club, the Red Doors, I want you to know the truth. Kevin could know. Listen, we hung out a lot together from going to nightclubs or bars in the neighborhood from Brooklyn to Queens to Long Island.
Been around a long time. I met a lot of people with Mark.
Yeah, he's a few years older than me, like I say, but
take it easy there.
The funny thing is, no matter where we go, people always say, hey, how you doing? And we pride ourselves on being that nice guy because you got to be genuine. There's a lot of guys out there just only care about themselves. If we only cared about ourselves, we'd probably be rich, but we're not. So, but we're more concerned about who we were as people, as men. A funny story I want to tell Kevin. You're gonna love this. So years ago, Johnny's first case, I think it was the case with I don't know if it was with Brackney or was something else. It was a hijacking case, whatever it was. So John's telling the story. Now, when I'm telling you stories about John, isn't like somebody else telling me. I'm repeating the stories. He sat with us in the club on a Saturday, hanging out, just relaxing, watching Yankee game. He tells me stories. He tells a story that it was a case coming, so he disappeared. Right? So who's he take with him? He takes Tony Roach, the famous Tony Roach. Now, Tony Roach and John take off, and they go to Pennsylvania. So here's the epitome of John and his personality. He's supposedly hiding, avoiding the law. He wants to delay the arrest. So he goes away for a week or two to stay home. Where does he take Tony? They go to Keystone Racetrack to bet horses. Now you think about it, right, Kevin? He wants to delay being arrested a couple of weeks so they can prepare the attorneys, Mike Corio, whoever. And he's with Tony Roach. They're in Keystone Racetrack. He tells the story and he's laughing. He says, I'm sitting there, I'm in Keystone, I got a leather jacket on with a collar up and sunglasses. And I'm standing on line to bet in the races, and there's a guy in front of me, talking to a guy in front of him with a suit and tie, a sports jacket kind. He says the drunken guy looked like he was half drunk, and he's talking like with a New York accent. All of a sudden, he turns around, and he sees me, and he freezes, he turns white. He was a trainer from New York. His name was Bobby DeBonis. He's not there. Bobby DeBonis owed a lot of Shylock money out. He owed John money. I think he owed John like $5,000. He disappeared. He didn't come around. All of a sudden, Bobby sees in Keystone, which is where Philadelphia Park is now, the racetrack, sees John standing on line. John goes, hey, Bobby, how you doing? Long time no see. So Bobby says, what are you doing here? You looking for me? Matter of fact, yes. I came all the way out here because somebody told me you're here. You owe $5,000. You're back a couple of months. You got to pay the guy, pay my guy off so you collect the money, get off this. I promise I'll pay you. No. How much you got on you now? So it's like, it goes to how much you got on you? It says, write a check, whatever it is, whatever you got on it. I said, I got about 700 on me. Give me the 700, he says. Here's $50, get yourself home, he says. I'm going to pay the bill. And I better see the money. You got 2 weeks. Tony Roach is standing behind Bobby, working over him. And Bobby's sweating. Johnny walks away left, goes, how you like that? We go to a racetrack. I made 700, he says. And I go there. That's John's mentality. By didn't want to turn himself in yet, and he finds a guy on the lam for a stupid Shylock loan that he owed one of his guys. And John makes fun of it and takes it. So this is that story, Kevin.
It's
But that
meant
was
to
his
be. It's
that,
meant to be.
that was his personality, right? I
Yeah,
mean, so but not
100%.
him. Everybody else there, Jeannie, Angelo, they had their own little person. Joey Scopo, great guy. They had their personality, and Joey was from a different neighborhood. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So, but he came around every day. It was a class act. But so stories like this. There was a story one time. We used to go to that place on Queens Boulevard. What was it, the Gardens?
The garden, Patty's.
What is it?
At Patty's place, the gardens.
The Gardens. It was on Queens Boulevard, right off Union Turnpike. Everybody stopped in there. It was me, you, Pete, Jackie. Everybody went there. It's amazing how guys who hung out with each other during the day would meet up in the same joint at night. It's almost like they can't get away from each other. Right, Kevin? They used to go to clubs where you knew
I used to
people.
be there almost every day because Tony Gawk, Patty was very close to the Gawk.
That's what I'm saying. So he's talking about Tony Gawk. Now, what I know of Tony Gawk is what I heard from back then. Never met the guy. Kevin was around him before he started hanging, to that incident with, the incident about Tony. He took his own life. Real stand-up guy. So I asked Kevin, I says, I want you to tell me a little more stories about with Gawk, about with John and Angelo, and some, little nutty things he made you do in the neighborhood.
Oh, Tony was a character. I tell you an incident. One time he broke down in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning. He calls me up, come and get me. Now he had a Lincoln and he had an old car, but the Lincoln, he would never come out when it's snowing or raining. He would come out with he used to call it, taking my crash car. He calls me up. I tell him, all right, where are you? He's by the Marine Parkway Bridge. Now I'm going westbound to go, got to get off Knapp Street and come all the way back. This maniac is there hitchhiking with an axe in his hand.
That's great.
I said to him, when I got him, who in your right mind would think about picking you up with an axe in your hand? That's the type of person he was. But love John and Angelo. They'd turn around, he used to say, when you go by the club on Wednesday night, and he send my love and to John.
I don't know if we remind you, I would tell you again, tell our fans, our audience, who was Tony's partner?
Sonny Francesi.
Sonny Francis.
Sonny.
They were partners back then.
Yep. And turn around. He used to tell me, let me go back in. I play handball with my gumbada.
Yeah.
Go back in. They didn't care.
These guys were street guys, legends. I mean, one did 50
grew up
years.
together.
Sonny did 50 years in prison.
Tony did.
Tony Gawk took his own life. It's because he made a mistake. Listen, everybody makes mistakes. Some guys make mistakes and right away want to run and get everybody else jackpotted. That's not happening. The guys we're mentioning, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
They make a mistake, they pay their price.
There was an article on Tony. I think I have it in the house somewhere still. I'm going back into the 60s. And Tony took his that pinch with Sonny and says that public enemy number one, in front page of the Mirror, the Daily News, and the New York Post.
And he dressed the part.
Oh yeah.
So I saw there's a picture on one day. I'm
gonna
get
a movie star.
I'm gonna get Ty one day. Put a couple pictures. You guys want to see some pictures? I have a couple of them. I'm gonna plan it. We'll put it up. I'll send the pictures and we'll post it on this episode. Try to at the end or something. Maybe you could see them or intermittently. But there's a picture I found. Tony, cigar, pinky rings, the flower in the lapel with the suit, with the glasses, with the
3 strands of hair.
3 strands of hair. This is, if you want to compare guys who look the part like John, Tony was one of them. But the best is, like John, Tony was a tough guy. So there's guys who play the part and guys who are the part. But funny thing is, I keep on mentioning, I'll say it again, that out of that Bergen, where we're going to shoot from and tell the stories, not one guy from the Bergen went on a stand against John.
Nope.
And I repeat it again, the thing with Willie Boy, he never testified against him. But not one guy went on a stand. But if you look at the guys who betrayed that oath, they're all from different neighborhoods. And this is a testament not to the neighborhood more so, but a testament to John. There's other guys out there, but they've had problems. There was a story with Tony Lee. Now, Tony Lee's a great guy.
Sweet.
Now, Tony Lee and Andy, Tony Lee loved John. You know, John knows them since they were older than John. So one day, just true story with me. I'm going to tell it because it was actually nothing. My girl at the time, my wife, my girl at the time had a hair salon. So she was doing a customer's hair, and the customer was drinking, brought her own glass of drink while my customer hair. Started getting on my wife's case, you know, arguing. So I walk in. We were just dating at the time, and my wife's arguing. I told her, get out of the restaurant. So she says to me, the famous bad words. You're not gonna throw me out if I go get my husband. He's gonna come teach you a lesson. Listen, we grew up around John, guys like that. When somebody told you that, it says, I'll wait right here. I won't even move. I don't care if it rains. I'll wait for your husband. What happens is, supposedly, she told the husband knew me from neighborhood. He wasn't even coming by. He wasn't coming by. The next day, who comes walking? Tony Lee's club was on between 84th Street and 85th Street and Liberty Avenue. Remember?
Under the L.
Under the L. Who comes walking down the block? It's Tony. Tony had the stink walk, you know, he had the glass on with his silver hair. Like my wife used to laugh to call him the silver fox. You know, he was coming down, he just comes in the salon. He sees my wife. He knows everybody. Says hello. And I come walk in the back. It's you, Mark? I says, yeah. He says, all I know is this kid is scared shit. He won't come out of the house. What do you mean? Well, the wife sigged him on me. I told him, he says, Jesus Christ. He says, let me ask you a question. He says, that statement you told her, where'd you get that statement from? For John, Jeannie, or Angelo? I says, all three. All three gave me that. You don't stand down. You don't stand down. Somebody wants to challenge you. He says, I didn't curse to her. I said, like a gentleman, go tell your husband, come here. I don't want to talk. I don't argue with women. You know, we don't argue with women. We're taught that. And so he goes, listen, he's scared. He doesn't want no problem. That was his wife was drinking. He's sorry. Okay. Next week later, there was a car service on Cross Bay Boulevard. You remember, Vecchi had them guys had the car service.
Right there.
I had to go to Queens Mall, pick up something for Christmas. My car wasn't working. I called the car service, Cross Bay Car, take me down there, right? So Johnny Boy, Pete's brother-in-law, was working the dispatcher. No problem. I get you. It's pouring rain out. Takes me to Queens Mall. I tell the driver, I give him a tip. I want you to come back pick me up. It'll be a half hour. I'm on Queens Boulevard on a phone booth back then. And it's pouring rain. All of a sudden, the car says, we're coming. I'm waiting an hour and a half. I'm drenched. I got a bag on me. Johnny Boy went off shift. He forgot to tell the driver. You know, Johnny Boy was a good guy.
He just passed away on me.
Yeah, he just passed away.
He used to come down here to Florida. We used to go out for dinner and all.
He was Pete Gotti's wife, brother.
Yes.
And
you know, sad part,
what?
He just died. His wife died a couple months after.
Really?
And, you know.
Harmless
really
guy, degenerate horse player, harmless guy.
Yeah.
But so he went off shift. I forgot to tell the new shift guy. I called the guy up. He said, hey, pal. He don't know him. He said, hey, pal. He says, go get fucking wet. Excuse me. I don't want to curse too much of the show. But go get wet. Your car gets there. I screamed on the phone. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hail a yellow cab, takes me to my house. I drop the bag off. I get a baseball bat. The cab sees me jump in the car with a baseball bat, take me to Cross Bay and Liberty. I open the door. The guy sees me. Open the door. The door's locked. He won't open the door. He's on the phone. Let me in. You're the guy who told me to get wet. Go screw myself. All of a sudden, Johnny Boy comes back. He says, Mark, what's the problem? I want that guy. He goes, oh, no. He says, no, the guy's on the phone. He calls Tony Lee. Tony Lee says, wait. Tony Lee. So Tony Lee's, I tell you, Tony Lee was a great guy. He made everything kind of casual. You know, Tony Lee and Andy were two separate personalities. But he goes, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Tell the guy to wait. So the guy says, wait right here. The owner's coming. One of the owners are coming. Who pulls up in a car with Shawbro? Remember Shawbro? Shawbro's driving. Tony Lee pulls up. He looks at you. Mark, he says, not you again. What happened 2 weeks ago? The guy told me stay on the rain. He won't give me a cab. He says, you're kicking the door down. He says, we got to have a talk, he says. I'll be by the club tomorrow when John's there. So we're going to have a talk. I go to the club. I went that Saturday. Tony comes in, sees me hello, get a kiss, hello, gentleman. He says, John, I got to talk to you about him. What? He had 2 incidents with this guy. You know the guy's father. He ended up being a rat, Tommy Sparrow, right? But This guy's father and a guy into the cab joint. They left him in the rain for an hour and a half. He went to go beat the shit out of him. He says, "So what's the problem?" Tony says, "John, he can't be strong." Says Tony, "I taught these guys. Guy disrespects you, harms your
Do what
family.
you got to do.
Do what you got to do. If you're right, I back you up 100%." That's one thing about him and Gene and Angelo, and they back you up. If you're right, they back you up. So those are funny. But
That's what Tony too. Tony used to say, "Don't lie to me. Tell me what happened." I used to be wrong sometimes, and he used to make me right. I used to say, "What did I miss? I missed something. You're with me. Don't worry about it."
so
You know, and then some, like you said, some people didn't even want to show up when they heard he was coming. You
well,
know,
that's what I'm saying. So growing up in the '80s, especially like when I was younger than him, so I thought I was, I wasn't afraid of people. And I knew Kevin's reputation even before I met him. Kevin was one of those fearless guys, but never an arrogant. We were nice to people, right, Kev? We have a lot of friends. A lot of people want to hang out with us, and you see guys out there playing this part. We don't like guys like that. I mean, we ran into a ton of them. Yeah, one story of me and him, we did something. We did something. So years later, I got in trouble for it because I wasn't supposed to be with him because Kevin was ahead of me. He was older than me, so he was more involved, around longer. He says, "Listen, Kevin, you can't take him yet. You can't take him yet." So but that was John and like Angelo. Angelo was one of the most
nicest guy.
nicest guy, but Angelo would shoot from the cuff. Angelo, you couldn't miss a beat. Angelo was pure and raw, right? I mean, even with yelling at guys, Angelo was like a bulldog, and
One time I didn't get along with Angelo. Then Tony Gawk says, "Tell Angelo I'd like to see him." And I says, "Okay." And he says, "What'd you do?" And I said, "I didn't do nothing." I says, "I just had a little beef with him." So I turned around, with all of them, Angelo, Tony Lee. I just want to say, I used to, because we were on Avenue U, Tony used to stay in Jasper's barbershop.
yeah,
And Tony Lee was right down the block. It's a seashell. That's when I first met Tony Lee.
okay.
And he knew I was very close to Tony because Tony used to go in there too. And by the way, Tony Belisi's very close to Tony Lee too.
See, we talking about Tony Belisi. Tony, we call him Tony Chickens.
Yeah.
When I was in Brooklyn for them 8 months, I met Tony a bunch of times. I go by the chicken joint, and another guy, a gentleman, but not not a nobody, a businessman, but did his time. Very, very, these guys had structure. If you did the mistake, you went to jail. You had to admire guys like that. But Tony knew them all. So when I went back to Ozone Park and I was telling John about, yeah, Tony Chickens, who? Tony?
I introduced
Shit.
you to him.
What?
I introduced you to him years ago.
Yeah, but he goes, Tony's a hell of a guy. He's friends with me, with Nick, with Lenny, with everybody.
Iggy too.
Iggy, Tony, and these are guys that to this day, God bless him. He's 94 years old. He's going to come on the show. We're going to do a Zoom call with him, right? Because I want him to tell you stories about John in prison. Some of the prison stories are funny. The guys used to say, well, if nobody eats, if everybody can't eat, Johnny don't eat. Johnny was, listen, I told you about that plaque. Not many guys get a plaque coming out of prison. They get a kicking ass and envelope, and a cab ride. But he got a plaque. And this has nothing to do with back then. Listen, when Johnny came out of prison, he was acting. He wasn't even, he waited for him.
That came with Charlie.
With Charlie.
And Danny. They're
Listen,
the ones that proposed him.
yeah, listen. Charlie and Danny and Neil took John, Angelo,
right.
and Jeannie and respect and took them under their wing. So whatever anybody else has to say,
It's
listen
not
to
true.
us.
It's not true.
Listen to me. So they can make up stories. But here's another story about John's popularity, but also kind of, I told you about how women would attract to him. But he was always a class act. He wasn't one of, listen, I'm not with the guy 24/7, so I don't know what anybody does in private, whatever. But that time with Brooksy and Mark, take this number, and when you get to the neighborhood, call him and tell you, don't bother him again. She was hawking him, beautiful, but in Regine's. Listen, I know, not from him, other guys with him. There was Joe the Cat. They were with him. They guys. Morgan Fairchild,
I was just gonna say that. You just
right?
took the words out
You
of my
know that
mouth. I
story.
know that story.
Morgan Fairchild
He
slipped.
said no. He didn't want nothing to do with it, you
He
know?
want no, Morgan Child gave her his number.
Yep.
Raquel Welch bought him a bottle of Cristal and winked at him. Says to the handsomest guy in the room. John would get like nice and embarrassed, but John would go home with his friends. You know, these were beautiful women in the 80s. They were knockouts. So, you know, I don't want to hear stories about other actresses or young actresses. I never heard them stories. But what I'm telling you about, we know. And if we know it, especially if I'm telling you, these stories came right out of John's mouth. John had no problem talking about these non-life incidents, just about the everyday
I never
incidents.
seen John with all the times that he come to see me, I come see them at the club. I never seen him with a woman.
Well, that's because them guys had this, like I said, I'm not saying I don't know. I'm only saying I only could only tell you what I see, what we see. He always told us, women come in a neighborhood, in a club, you treat them with respect constantly. But John was also had a great sense of humor, you know. So I want to tell the story. I've been dying to tell. I'm going to tell it. Fat Bob. It's a
Oh,
Fat Bob story because you know why? Fat Bob took care of John's menial stuff, dry cleaning, his office, delivery, whatever. He took care of a lot of things that, you know, for John. It was almost like his valet, right? You know, he was his personal valet. But so one day, Johnny gets 4 tickets to a hockey game. The Rangers are playing the Islanders. Now, this is 1982. The Islanders were champions, the Rangers were losers. But he gets tickets to go to Nassau Coliseum, 10th row from the goalie. Great seats.
don't
Right?
forget I worked there.
What? Yeah.
I worked for the Islanders.
So we're there. So we go, who's the invite? He wants to take Peter Boy, his son. Mark, come with us. Hey, Bob, you go to a hockey game, you drive us. I don't want to drive to Nassau Coliseum. So Bob had a Lincoln. We load in. So just as John, drop us off in front of the casino. I ain't walking through that Nassau Coliseum parking lot and go park the car. We go see the game. We walk in. Now, listen, let's be honest. It's Bob, who's bigger than me. I'm a big, young kid, little Peter, and John, who a lot of people didn't know him back then. Some people did. Just his look, you know who he was. We sit down. He calls the vendor over, give us some hot dogs, popcorn, some beers, and he gives the vendor $100 bills. Just keep them coming. He says, you know, that's John. So now the game starts, the hockey game. All of a sudden, the Rangers scored a first goal. Now remember, we're in enemy territory, the Islanders' territory, and they've been world champions. They won 4 in a row, I think. So John gets up. Yes, that's it, Rangers. I says, John, he says, yeah. He says, I got 5 dimes on the Rangers. I bet the Rangers, he says. He says, all of a sudden, as he gets up to yell when Rangers score the first goal, if I tell you 50 to 100 people behind him, boom, sit down, shut up. And he turns around, remember, and he's not dressed in a suit and tie, he's dressed in a dress shirt with slack. Sits down, looks at everybody, stands up and goes, go screw yourselves. I got 5 dimes on the Rangers. And half the crowd went, they all put their head down. They all got quiet. John sat down and says, that'll teach him to yell, he says. Rangers win the game 4-3. John's happy. We won 5,000. He tells Bob, it's about maybe a minute left of the game, right? He goes, go out, get the car, and pull it up by the Coliseum. True story. This is hilarious. This is some of the incidents. So we're waiting outside now as the fans file out. Now remember, Ranger Islander game, the place was packed.
All the time.
Filing out. Johnny's like this. But where is this fat bastard? He says. We can't, he's not there. He's not coming. I'm telling you, there must have been 3 people left in that. Now we're outside. The security's closing the gates. We're waiting for a guy. There's no phones. You have no cell phones back then.
Not day.
The parking lot's thinned out. If there's 30, 40 cars in, it's like, he's like this fat piece of shit. He's saying, where the frig I got? You know, my son, Peter had to be, you know, if he was 9 or 10, I don't know. He was a kid. We're not waiting. It's a weekday. Where is he? Screw this. He sees a cab. He calls the cab over. The guy tells him, listen, I need you to take me to Queens. The guy says, I can't go to Queens. I don't know what to charge you. Charge me something. He says, what's it cost me? I got to get at least $60 to go to Queens and pay for my back. Johnny says, here's $200. Take me now. No questions asked off the clock. The guy says, sure. We load a card. He says to me, Turns to me, fuck that stupid bastard. I don't care what happens to him. Drive back to Queens, drops the boss by Richie's Club around the corner. Pete's there, Tommy, a couple guys. Happy you. Do you see that fat bastard? He says, no. He says, he disappeared. The car was gone. He says, you believe this? He says, come on, Pete, Tommy, let's go to Corporate Boulevard, get something to eat. I'm starving. He says, go to eat. And he says, all of a sudden, as we're getting to eat, who pulls up? Fat Bob in a Lincoln. Johnny comes out. Now, you're going to stand something. He came out with his hand like this. Let me ask you a question, you stupid bastard, he says. Where'd you go, Kevin? He says, I lost the car. What do you mean you lost the car? He says, a Lincoln. How the fuck you lose the car? He says, I couldn't find the car. Find out. Little Bob's yappy mouth. He tells somebody else. He didn't lose the car. He didn't want to pay the parking fee.
So they towed it away.
So he parked it outside the Coliseum on an illegal spot, and the security towed the car to a pen down the block. He couldn't find the car. They towed him with a $250 ticket. He finds out, he says, you bastard, to save $15, you kept me outside and outside. You're freaking punished. Johnson, you're punished. Don't come around all week. And you're not getting paid this week. You're punished. That's where we put you. So he says to us, Pete, you see the idiots, imbeciles I got around me? And I need the guy around me because
He was a real winner.
Oh, but this is a guy. I told you stories about Bob with the shirts and Nadler's, but he lost the car. You ever hear stories like this? But these are the characters. We got more stories. You know, I got a ton of them. I want you guys to understand one thing. Me and Kevin, we're doing this for a reason, right?
Oh.
We're sick and tired of the bullshit.
Yeah, I got good friends out there. I love them and everything, but all these people, they're talking things. They're not even saying the right things. They're making stories.
This is people in the 80s, and John, I got Angelo stories. Listen, I could tell you story. I go Christmas Eve. We used to go by after Christmas Eve. Sometimes when I started hanging, I stopped going there for my family show up Christmas Eve. Sometimes I go by John's house. Everybody leave the club after going to the city for Christmas Eve to see Neil back then. Guys would come back to the club. They had food catered, be drinking, say Merry Christmas. Sometimes John would go around handing all the associates guys money for their pocket. Merry Christmas. Here's a couple hundred. John was like that. So we go by his house, 8 o'clock, and his wife, Vicky, would be there, and we all go sit in his den. We break out wine. We sit there, hang out. It was me, Billy, Tommy, his brother Pete, and different guys from around there. Sonny would go hang out there by his house on Christmas Eve. And Vicky always cooked something, and they had stuff brought in. And, Vicky was a great cook, and she'd sit there. You guys want to eat? We've been eating for 4 hours, but we're drinking. And, and John would, that was part of John, he already had lost his son, so Angelo, one day, I never forget this, the next Christmas Eve goes like this, what do you do for Christmas Eve, Mark? I says, I'm going by, you're going by John's like everybody else. All you guys just run by Johnny's. What's the matter? I'm no good? You don't love me? I says, Ange, I'll come by your house Christmas Eve. I didn't know you wanted people. She says, yeah, it'd be nice to get some visitors. I'm there with my wife and my kids, He says, you come by the house, he says. It'd be nice. Marie's making. He said it was cooking. Come by the house. Sure, I come by the house. So I go there. I drive out. He was out in Cedarhurst at the time. That was Jay Black's old house. Remember Jane Americans? Angelo had bought Jay Black's house. But I go there, and Marie's there, and they're putting the food out I meet, and it's just me and Angelo with the kids, Johnny Boy, Louis. All of a sudden, now you got to understand one thing. John's house was more controlled and more, Angelo's was calmer. Angelo's house, the kids were young. Angelo, Angelo Jr., Louis, Johnny Boy was, in his 20s, but, and there was the girls, and they were all good people. They were all good people, very friendly people. But the boys were a little rambunctious. And, you'd be sitting there, and all of a sudden some 8-year-old kids flying through the air, tackling you, landing on your head, knocking you over. This is Angelo's house. It was more, but Angelo said, everybody goes by John's. Why does nobody come by mine? But that was just and that was Angelo, and so I went, and but that's his personality, Um, we were talking about a story one time about Angelo, listen, let's be honest. Angelo was a bulldog on the street,
Oh yeah, he was a bulldog.
total bulldog. But their wives, these guys didn't marry weak wives, right? Marie,
Yeah.
Vicky, they didn't take no crap from nobody. It's almost like they married counterparts,
Mm.
right? Think about it, right? But but all good people. I mean, listen, when I walked in a house, John's house in Howard
All
Beach, or even
respect.
how you doing? Come in, sit down. You want something to eat? Want something to drink? Just not, and listen, and you understand, and they lost a child. I can understand, that weighs on people forever. I don't care who you are, but but so these are times that I want you to understand that they had good sides. I mean,
Well, I want to say something. I just went out with some people from family and everything, and I didn't know that this guy came from the neighborhood. So I turned around, he was a good guy. And he turns around, he says, you know something? Out of nowhere, he says, I miss John Gotti.
well, see, that's
I
what,
said to him, I says, why'd you just say that to me? He said, you know why? Because I come from the neighborhood. We felt safe in the neighborhood when he
that's the
was
whole
there.
thing.
And I says, wow, that blew my mind. And I told him what we were doing. And he said, wow, that's a good thing. He says, I go back to the neighborhood now. There's nothing there no more.
Yeah, it's
There's nothing.
when I started to do this thing, I've been writing this out for 4 or 5 years. I love to write. I wrote a couple screenplays. I got a pilot. You guys are gonna love it, based on a true story. I mean, but so I'm friends with Kevin a long time, and I didn't want to do this alone because I think it beneficial. The more people we have, you guys will appreciate because I want to build the show out. I want to make it into a nice event. I think it's important that you guys get the truth. And when I say the truth, I'm going to say it again. I told you, them guys ain't allowed here. They don't want to talk about them. They can talk all they want. They got to be careful because when the truth comes out, it hurts. There's no difference in how we feel. We went on and went to work, have my own business. He went to work and business. That has nothing to do with how we felt. My man, my friend did a lot of time and went in and came out. And he's 74 years old. God bless him. He's still a good guy. I know. If somebody talk bad about him to me, I'll defend him, and I know he'd do the same to me. We're not, you fans out there, you show it. That's why I want you to subscribe. Tell your friends. The show's gonna get bigger. We're doing it the right way, bud. We're gonna have an event we want you to be part of. I told you about the emails. We're gonna put it together. I'm gonna try to get in contact with you. I'm gonna have you on a live feed. You're gonna answer questions and be involved with the show. You're gonna see some things revealed that you're gonna really go. You're gonna fall off your chairs, but I want your impact. I want your voice. Your voice means a lot to us, right? The
That's
people,
true.
you should know the truth. Stop supporting. I don't want you to get misled. There's a number of true stories, and I have years of them. You want to know stories about? Listen, I could tell you stories. A guy asked me a story. Got any more Tony Roach stories?
Uh,
Come on. I mean, listen, Tony Roach, and I heard it from other guys.
you could use him for Halloween.
Yeah, but in state prison, he was a
Oh,
legend.
yeah. He
In the
was.
state prison
He's
system,
a tough guy.
tough guy and scary. But one time around the corner by the trestle, we put a basketball hoop up by Richie's out front social club, and Tony Roach was what about six
He's
three,
tall.
but he was built. He had the high butt. I swear, I thought he had some black blood in him. I really did. Good basketball player, good handball player. He used to play basketball with us. We were younger than him, but that was Tony's personality. Tony had a problem his whole life. And guys want to hear it. Johnny tried to help a lot of guys. You know
Can't
that.
give him no money.
No, but he tried to
Not
help
got
them.
him back.
Got him job.
Oh, yeah. He helped them all the time.
And John, listen, Johnny had a goal, had a vision. He was where he wanted to go in life, whatever, in that lifestyle. But he always, he could have said, "I got no time for this nonsense." He had time. He always listen. I got a true story. When I want to take a woman on a date, have no money that week or something, or I'm gonna lost at the track or whatever it was. He was the first guy you went to, because he understood. He was an underdog. And we're talking about all underdogs, that whole, their brothers and guys who came around. I'm, I got next episode. I'm going to give you a breakdown on personalities. We're going to do that. I'm going to give you about 20 guys that came to see the Bergen that did just come once in a while. Listen, I walked there. I know he's in prison. Was he about 93? Little Vic.
Yeah, victim amazing.
Little Vic. I seen him by the club talking to John a
What a
million
shame.
times in the 80s.
What a shame.
But before they were, before they ascended to any different level, they were both from Howard Beach, and they talked a lot. So, there's all that from them, like I said, Donnie Shacks or Joey Scopo or Joe Messina or guys who come from Jersey. I mentioned the guys' stories about the guys from Providence,
Oh,
but the guys like Gerard and Redbird, these guys were notorious
Raymond.
tough guys.
Raymond too.
Yeah, Raymond, these were notorious tough guys. But when they came running to John. Now listen, there was a lot of guys in the streets back then in the 80s. 80s was a real powerful time. But they attracted to John like magnets, like steel to mag, this is a really so the funny thing is, and John would downplay the whole thing. John would give everybody conversation. John wouldn't, if John, like I said, I remember when you told you John, if he liked you, he talked to you. If he didn't like you, you never know it. But John was a great converser. How many times did you run into him when he used to come and visit Willie Boy or go to Brooklyn? And he never was hello and walk. If he was something on his mind, he would say hello, peace, hello. And then 5 minutes later, if it was finished with his conversation, hey, Kev, how about we go on a boat sometimes? Oh, Kev, you know what? Let's order some food. I want to hang out. John could bring his level down to underdog level. Listen.
And just have fun.
Right?
Just have fun.
He would like to have
I
fun.
met him one time. We were on the boat, and all of a sudden, the next day I went to use the boat, and the boat wasn't there. I said, what happened to the boat? Did we tie it up right? Unfortunately, the agents took it, and they were thinking there was a conversation there. It was nothing. Everything was fun. What are they going to talk about? Eating?
Well, that's what it was, but I want you, you're going to see the both sides of John. It's going to get bigger, more intense. We're going to shoot it from inside the club.
Yeah.
We're going to have our interior all done, and we're going to have it really set up nice. And you guys are going to be involved. We want you to join. We want you to be. You're going to see there's something cool. And some of the stories, as even the kind of darker stories, all have something connected to it. It's not just blatant. There's guys that how many guys are going around and just smacking guys with nasty guys.
It's stupid.
All right, you saw that. I mean, there's guys. Guys want to talk about. There's guys out there. There's guys who had to get coked up to beat up or kill anybody. Had to get junked up. There's guys like that too. You know that. I mean, these guys were just. But the people he brought from prison. I told you. Hear a story about Charlie Peters?
Oh yeah,
I told that story about all the scab wounds.
Good handball player, Charlie.
Yeah, but he had stab wounds on him. I mean, but Johnny invited him, that Jimmy out of prison, Jimmy Irish.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butch. A lot of Jimmys, right? Jimmy Butch. The guy wants to hear another classic character, John. They go way back. Tony Pep. Now,
Man.
Tony Pep was a classic street guy. And he had that pigeon-toed walk, right? He had that way he walked.
I used to be with him every Christmas Eve.
Smoking, right? He was a smoker back then. Good-looking guy, always had his hair jet black, right? And Tony, when we were younger, if you had a reputation that John liked, Tony would come over, hey, Marky boy, you kiss your low with that voice, how you doing? And
voice.
I remember that time he drove a white Seville with the flat back. Remember the flat back Seville? A white Seville. And I think he lived in Massapequa at the time, right?
Then he moved to Franklin Square.
Yeah, but he lived in Massapequa at the time. But he lived in Massapequa, and Tony, dressed sharp, a classic guy, and they were friends for a long time. But I'm gonna tell you a true story. But I have to tell you a true story because I told you a story about the phone call in John's office. I don't know if I ever brought it up.
Mm.
So Tony was in a club one night with his friends, and some girl was hounding him. Buy me a drink. I bought her a drink, and come on, take my number, call me. Hey, let me call you. And Tony didn't want to be bothered, but Tony was being nice at the same time. So once Tony found out who she was, he really started walking away from her. So Tony gives her a number. He goes in his pants pocket. He gives her a number. Whose number is it? John's office. So wait a minute. Here's the best part. The phone's ringing. John's answering. I think I told the story, but I have to tell it again. Guys didn't get it. Happened to be a wise guy's ex-wife.
Wow.
Tony knew he didn't want no part of her, but he gave her John's number just to bust John's balls. They were friends for a long time. John got upset. I think I told you the story. And Tony laughed hysterical. He says, "Oh, what's good for the goose is not good for the gander." You know what I mean? And John says, "Hey, you got me." I was wondering who's this is, except for Tony. I hung up. They called back. I hung up. Trying to give me a headache, he says. But that's the relationship, you know. And Tony had a club in Elmont, right?
Elmont,
Up the
right on Meacham Avenue.
Yeah, up the stairs, right?
No, no stairs. It was
Wasn't there?
flag. We were right behind because I was there every day with him.
Oh, it was brother Frankie,
With
right?
Frankie,
Yeah,
Smiley.
but Tony, I met. I thought Tony was originally around Andy and Tony Lee.
Yes.
They all, you understand, they all came from the same must have been area. You know, Johnny was around Charlie Fatico. Tony and Tony Lee were Andy's guys. So, but they all grew up around the same area, you know. And let's be honest, you know, John's a legend, you know, acting captain before he even got straightened out.
Yeah.
You know, that's hard to do, but that was that was Neil. Neil had a great
Neil loved
effect.
him.
Neil loved him. Like he loved the other guys too. He loved,
Yeah.
you know, so he loved Frank, he loved Nick, you know. But Neil had affection for you. You knew it. And Neil was a serious guy, you know. Neil was a classic, you know. But um, John at dinner, his favorite restaurants. I don't know what some guys say, Cracker Barrel? Get the hell out of
Cracker
here.
Barrel.
Listen,
Wouldn't even go in there.
yeah, wait. Altadonna's.
That was the main one.
Konos, love
Konos.
Konos in the city. La Camellias, sort of La Camellias all the time. Listen, this is, you know, we should go down. I remember one time we go to the original Vincent's on Martin Hester.
Oh, yeah.
And we sit, it was late at night. Vincent's was open all night. And we order shrimp balls, calamari, shrimp, trays them with the hot sauce, drink. And it's just 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning. He's eating. And who walks across the street? I see some Chinese guy dressed real sharp. You never seen a Chinese guy, street guy. And Johnny goes, "Holy shit, Nicky Louie." His name was Nicky Louie. He was like a boss around China. Just call him. Nicky turns around and Johnny goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "John." And he runs across the street, tells this guy to wait there, gives John a hug. "What are you doing?" That's John's affection. These were the Chinese street guys that controlled Mott Street. But Nicky was like a Chinese version of John, you know what I mean? But that was and we're sitting in Mott and Hester, or we used to go to, who was the guy with remember Sammy's Romanian? Remember Sammy's Romanian? With the sawdust on a joint. Steak and eggs.
Was that Georgie with the accordion coming in there too?
Oh, please.
Georgie,
So
every place you go, he comes
he's
in
always there.
Get away from the table.
Get away from the table. You know, but John's some of my favorite, you know, restaurants. You know, listen.
SPQR was another.
SPQR, that's where my first meeting there was during the feast. But listen, we used to go eat. Joe Butch had a place, Il Fornai, across the street. I think his brother had it. It was a little joint. They made a gnocchi there that were out of this world. We used to go eating there. You know, guy says, "What is this, a cooking show?" Well, you know, you're around street guys and Italians. Listen, go to all the movies in Hollywood. There was food on every scene. And food was a conversation piece, you know, but
that goes with Skippy too. Skippy around the corner, on Mott Street there, on Hester Street, had all the Italian, the dishes, the espresso pots,
they were there for
everything.
years. You go there,
John said to me, "Go get it. Go want something nice? Go there. Go into Skippy's."
Yeah, but that was part of the, you know. I remember these guys grew up with nothing. A lot of you guys know that in that age, you know, they grew up with nothing. So but just, you know, I guess. Listen, I'll still say it. I say it again. They were an element of the way the country was back then. You know, in the 50s, times they grew up poor. They had nothing. The city and the government was run by people pretty much controlled everything in the U.S. And these guys saw guys with nice cars, dressed nice, flashing money around. Yeah, very intoxicating. Like I said, happened to me when I was in a one-on-one and I met them. They were giving me $100 tips. I said, "I'm doing something wrong. I'm waiting on guys with $1.50 tips on a $20 spend. This guy gave me $200. They spent only $200. I'm getting out of here. There's no money here." But that's so you got to understand that. But like I says, I'm going to tell you stories about guys with jobs, right?
Oh,
want a union job? You want to get a job? How many guys he put listen, How many guys he put to work with bus lines, driving buses, green line bus,
School buses too.
school buses? They gave guys jobs. I mean, listen, you don't want to hang out. You want to hang out at a club, go pick cars, bet horses, just be a friend, but you got to go to work. You don't want to do something illegal, go to work. And you got to take, I got to take umbrage to them guys that say, oh, we did everything illegal. That's bullshit. You had guys in your club, they were working guys. They wanted to,
All them guys. I had all them guys from the cab stand in my club.
yeah. So, but they wanted to be around. A lot of them were Italian and Irish. They wanted to be around a group they felt safe with. So if something happened to them, they had protection. Let's be honest. So, they had friends to go to. I got a problem. My son got into a fight. Can you help me? Listen, so Johnny was notorious. Gene and Angelo and Joey. There was a problem with some in the neighborhood. They go take care of it. Come on, let's go. We're going to fix this problem. This is our neighborhood. You don't crap around in your neighborhood. We miss that. You miss I know you guys miss that. What's going on these days? I don't know. And I really don't care. We're not, I'm talking about an era that's legendary. Guys say, well, the 30s, during the 50s, the 60s, the 80s. It was powerful in the streets. I mean, guys would say to me, oh, that's some guys from the Red Doors, right? They wouldn't say some guys who knew would say the Bergen. But it says, I ran into a beef with a guy from another crew, and he was, he loudmouthed my mother-in-law and my wife. I went after him. He got scared. And the guy says, what are you scared of? He's one of them lunatics from the Bergen. I want no problems with them. but those guys from the Red Doors. That's why I named it The Secret Behind the Red Doors. It's about a full lifestyle of that life, the street life, whatever you were. I mean, you guys, listen, you remember the feast? The feast.
Feast was good.
The church tried to shake down the Bergen.
You try to say that we took the money from them. Meanwhile, there was security being made.
Yeah.
Right? Everything, the electric bill was paid.
And the next year, they want to take a bigger cut of the pie.
Yeah.
And they're talking to John and Tony Lee. We want a bigger cut. You're talking to us. You want to, they wanted to shake the street guys down. So listen, street guys ain't going to bulldoze the Catholic Church. Let's be honest. So they say,
they
what?
Expanded it. You know why? Because it was only on 104th Street and 105th Street. Guys, that was the area.
We went down to 98th
and then
Street.
we went all the way from 98th Street all the way to 106th Street.
Yeah. So, but what happened was,
but don't sell balloons.
Yeah.
Because there was a beef over balloons. A friend of mine wanted to put balloons out there, and then all of a sudden we had to go to Mulberry Street. You can't sell no balloons because O'Neill's son.
Yeah, well, that's
the
what
balloons.
it was. So, O'Neill's son, Armand. That's another character.
That was a great, great feast.
So if they killed, pretty much the Catholic Church wanted a bigger take. They said, that's it, no feast, we're not going to follow more. They went back to having their bazaar
and they're still in the same back in the.
So, this is the Catholic Church bulldozing street guys who, listen, fights, people. The best part of that feast, we were getting paid, and we go from stand to stand, checking security, and people would feed us.
Yeah.
Zeppelis, and listen, that's all you got to do is tell us, especially, big guy. I'll rephrase that for you, purists out there, fat guy like me. You know what I mean? But it was fun earning money and talking to girls. The place was packed with girls, right? But you couldn't bring it around the Bergen. Richie Gotti had set up tables all over with chairs with waitresses. So if you wanted to go romance a girl, you had to go by that club. Bergen was strictly a different place.
I still got pictures with carrying the saint. The guy's carrying the saint.
So this is the story we're telling. I'm glad Kevin's here. He'll be back for the next episode. We're going to give you a list the next episode, right?
Sorry, I haven't been here because, I had
I told him, I said,
health problems and back
when you get older, things happen. I told you to pray for him because, listen, as long as he feels good, I'm happy. You don't feel good, I get pissed off. I don't want to get pissed off. Then I start cursing at my neighbors, he says. But listen, I want you guys to really stay tuned, subscribe. I need you to subscribe. I need to build subscribers. Talk to your friends. It's going to be something new. I'm going to get you so involved in something new. You're going to be proud you're a part of it. And we're going to have items you're going to love and everything about it. Listen, if I don't get to your comments, you can understand. There's a lot of them out there. We're busy trying to build this. I got to take care of my wife, take care of him. So if I don't answer your comments, just let them. I'll get to them if it's a week later. I appreciate all the positive. It really feels good. And we're there for you telling the truth. The Secret Behind the Red Door is about the truth and John Gotti's truth, nothing else. You're not going to get nothing else. John and all the people around him, right, Kevin? It's about the truth.
That's right. No rats.
No, yeah. Listen, no rats. We don't want that. You don't deserve that. You deserve that. So, till then, I know it's Thursday. We're taping this on Thursday. I hope you get it tomorrow. If not, as soon as possible, because we can get edited out. And we'll be back next week. We'll do it next week again. Maybe I'll bring my wife down if she feels good with Maria. We'll go out to have lunch or something. We'll do it. It's my wife's birthday. It's my wife's birthday next week.
Maria's too.
Really? Yeah, that's
The
right. The
6th.
day after.
The
My wife's
6th.
the 5th or 6th. So we'll do something together. But guys, we're fighting for the truth. You should too. And we know you're big fans of John's, and he was a rebel, but he was the rebel the right reasons, not the wrong
You
reasons.
know what it is? A lot of guys are out there, right? Like John and everything. We believe in the right things, not the bad things.
Yeah, well, I
You
want you to
hear
s
these stories from other different people.
you're gonna hear
Wrong.
charity stories, helping people out
Yes.
for no reason,
Charity.
not even for money. People helping other people from different neighborhoods.
That's a lot of things with the charity. United Cerebral Palsy.
Oh man,
We're on
but
TV
you
for
have
so many
no idea the
raising money. We'll
and
get
you
into that.
and you know what? He didn't want letters, posters. It was a big thing for that. John did it out of good. He was, we'll talk about it then. So till then, my friend, we'll see you later. Talk to you soon. Please subscribe. I have my Patreon channel. Whatever you want to do, it helps because this comes out of our pocket because it's a passion project of mine. And Kevin said I want to be involved because I believe in it. So,
Everyone out there, be healthy and God bless America.
yeah, God bless America. Be healthy. Take care of your families first. That's all that matters. Till then, see you soon. Take care. Ciao.